Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Amina Khan. I hope I'm rightly addressing you as doctor because uh, um, have, she will be focused on, her remarks will focus on how should Pakistan meet the challenges in Pakistan's western border with Afghanistan and Iran. Thank you, Amina.
The relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan, as we all know, has always been very complex and uneasy to say the least. But I think since October 2025, the relationship we have all seen has entered a rather dangerous and volatile phase. Now, why do I say this? Because of the increase in not only the cross-border hostilities, but the direct attacks that both countries have been waging against each other. And I think this has marked one of the most serious escalations since the return of the Afghan Taliban to power. Now, at the center of this particular surge has been the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, which has re-emerged as not only a major security threat for Pakistan, but I think the key bilateral irritant in the Pakistan-Afghanistan relationship. Now, as we're all aware, the TTP continues to operate from Afghanistan. And sadly, despite denials from the current leadership in Kabul, the TTP does enjoy the tacit support and patronage of the Afghan Taliban. And as a result, you have seen that the Pakistani state has very reluctantly moved towards an operation which is termed as Ghazb al-Haq, and this was launched in February 2026. Now, why do I say reluctantly? For the past 5 years, Pakistan has shown immense strategic patience. It has tried dialogue, it has tried economic leverages, it has tried bilateral engagement, but unfortunately, the Afghan Taliban, and including, let me just mention third-party mediation, which we have seen from Qatar, we have seen from Turkey, and of course, we saw it in the very beginning from China through the trilateral framework. But unfortunately, the Afghan Taliban have continued with their patronage of the TTP, and hence you see the current state of ties. Now, while the operation has been launched, I have to say it has come with its fair share of consequences. And one has been, which I just mentioned, escalation, not only with the TTP in terms of cross-border attacks, but the escalation we have seen in the culmination of the so-called open war between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And of course, then there have been critical issues coming up in terms of sovereignty. Now, where does the Afghan Taliban stand in all of this? I have to say that it is very unfortunate, but I think the Afghan Taliban's role in this particular issue has been extremely disingenuous, primarily because there has been complete denials that the TTP does not operate from Afghanistan and that the Afghan Taliban does not have any sort of leverage over the TTP. But again, here I think they're being disingenuous because if we go back to, let's say, June 2022, the Afghan Taliban were able to bring about a ceasefire between Pakistan and the TTP. It was a short ceasefire. It lasted for 5 months, but nevertheless, we did have a ceasefire. Moreover, time and again, the Afghan Taliban have offered to relocate the TTP to different parts of Afghanistan. This clearly shows that there is not only leverage, but generally the presence of the TTP in Afghanistan. And I think a very important question that not only the region and not only Pakistan, but I think the international community needs to ask the Afghan Taliban is, what is their rationale or basis for supporting the TTP? One understands, while one may not necessarily agree with the Afghan Taliban, but they were fighting for the sovereignty of Afghanistan and the withdrawal of foreign forces. What is the TTP actually fighting for, and who is it fighting against? These are two very important elements that we need to focus on. Moreover, if we see the TTP has continuously changed its goalposts. Initially, their war against Pakistan was because Pakistan was a part of the war on terror. Then they said they wanted to implement Sharia. But what kind of Sharia are we talking about? And also, does the domestic audience even want that kind of Sharia? Very recently, it has been the reversal of erstwhile Fatah, and after Pakistan launched the current operation that I just talked about, the TTP has categorically stated that its war is now against the state of Pakistan because of its actions in Afghanistan. Therefore, I think it is very important for the Afghan Taliban to recalibrate and think about why they are supporting the TTP, because I think this puts into question not only their chances of legitimacy. After all, the TTP is killing fellow Pakistanis and Muslims. And I think this is very important. And this goes back to the justification that the Afghan Taliban gave that they will never support any element that kills fellow Muslims and whatnot. Now, what needs to be done here? I think it is very, very important to hold the Afghan Taliban accountable. This is not a very popular notion, but I will go back to the basis of this, which is the Doha Agreement. The only party, in my limited knowledge, that has been able to benefit from the Doha Agreement has been the Afghan Taliban solely. And therefore, I think it is important for the international community and the region to hold the Afghan Taliban accountable for their counterterrorism assurances. This current conflict, while it is between Pakistan and Afghanistan, but it doesn't and it shouldn't be termed as bilateral, because what Pakistan is expecting from the Afghan Taliban is an obligation, an international obligation that the Afghan Taliban themselves agreed to in Doha. And therefore, I think this particular issue needs to be corrected when it comes to the demands that Pakistan has. Moreover, I think it is also important to look into Pakistan's approach. While I do understand that military operations have dented the TTP to a certain extent, at the end of the day, no matter where the conflict is, there is always collateral damage. And this, of course, then goes against Pakistan, and we have seen this. Therefore, while kinetic operations have to be continued, I think dialogue also needs to be kept in mind. The Afghan Taliban, for good or bad, they are open to negotiations, and I think we should not close this door completely. Moreover, I think it's very, very important for Pakistan and Afghanistan, pending the resolution of this particular conflict, to look into some sort of a strategic partnership agreement where both countries can then revert back to any differences they have. I have often seen that this relationship, which is so interdependent, does not have a coherent bilateral framework where if anything goes wrong, they can come back to it. Often we see unilateral actions taken by one side or the other. And what is bewildering is, again, I want to stress on the fact that it is such an important and interdependent relationship. We don't have such a framework. The Indians have a strategic partnership framework that they signed in the days of the Republic, which I believe is still intact. Even the Iranians have such an agreement. Sadly, Pakistan doesn't. While we did try back in 2012 to have such a strategic partnership agreement, it didn't come to fruition. And I think it is very, very important to have a broad-based bilateral framework for both countries to engage in. Lastly, I think it is very, very important for the region to play its role. I think we have seen a compartmentalized approach when it comes from the region, where every region has been engaging bilaterally with the Afghan Taliban. And I think this has emboldened the Afghan Taliban to not be held accountable, particularly when it comes to the issue of the TTP. We have seen similarly a compartmentalized approach from the Afghan Taliban, where they have given precedence to dealing with certain terrorist entities such as the ISKP, but they haven't given the same kind of precedence to the TTP. So therefore, there has to be a greater push from the region and the international community. Now, let me just add here that while the Afghan Taliban, of course, the onus is on them and they have to adhere to those pledges of reform that they themselves agreed to in Doha, primarily the counterterrorism issues, I think Pakistan also needs to look inwards. Now, I know this is not a very popular notion, but I think dialogue with the TTP needs to be reconsidered. Why do I say this? When we say Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, we are owning up to the fact that they are Pakistani. Therefore, I think dialogue at least has to be explored. It has been explored in the past and we've had mixed results, but I still think that there is room for negotiations because the TTP is not a monolith. It's an amalgamation of about 26 to 27 entities. And some of them are primarily based in erstwhile Fatah, they are tribal, and I do feel that if negotiations are given a chance, not towards all of them, but those that are willing to reconcile, I think this shouldn't be completely ruled out. And I believe that even if we are able to reconcile with even 7 or 6 of those particular groups, I think this is a way and an opening forward. So therefore, it shouldn't be ruled out and it shouldn't be considered as a sign of weakness, because dialogue is never the sign of weakness. And clearly, we have seen that military operations haven't really achieved the desired results. Now, what is the way to move forward, particularly in this current stance? Trilateral engagement, of course, is welcome. The Chinese tried it in the past, and we've seen it through Turkey and Qatar as well. While it's welcoming, I think both Pakistan and Afghanistan know each other pretty well. Both have to come to a workable compromise. And I think, again, I stress, while kinetic operations need to be pursued, at the same time, dialogue is important. Closing the doors completely to dialogue, I think it's just nonsensical, because at the end of the day, there is no other way to move forward. I will also say here that Pakistan and Afghanistan need to move beyond these terminologies as brothers and whatnot. I think President Karzai very rightfully termed or defined the relationship in the terms of conjoined twins in the negative sense, because actually being conjoined twins is a very difficult relationship, and this just shows you the nature of the relationship and the fact that both countries have to move towards workable ties and move beyond these notions of brotherhood and whatnot. Because right now, I think the past 5 years have clearly shown us where this relationship is headed. And here I will say that it is important for Pakistan to focus inwards. Again, I will reiterate, I think it was a big mistake for Pakistan to depend on the Afghan Taliban in the beginning to negotiate for us with the TTP. Pakistan should take ownership. I believe we have the means, we have the capabilities, but we have to have the will. And sadly, I feel that is missing in terms of dialogue, because it is seen as a sign of weakness. Lastly, I will say here, while yes, now we always refer to Fatah as erstwhile Fatah, sadly it is not erstwhile Fatah. The situation is exactly as it was, say, 7 years ago. It is important to mainstream Fatah and bring development, not only just deploying troops there. Again, this is controversial, but this is something that really needs to be looked inwards. So with this, I will end and just say that again, Pakistan really needs to focus on its relationship with Afghanistan, and it needs to do so through the prism of a sovereign and independent entity. Thank you.
Thank you, Amna, for your excellent presentation on a very important topic involving challenges faced by Pakistan on its western border with Afghanistan and Iran. And I particularly appreciate your perspective that it was a very balanced perspective, that while it is important to have strong border management and counterterrorism measures, but at the same time, we also need to have long-term dialogue solutions which lie in cooperation, trust building, and economic integration. Thank you so much.